Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of DevTips. I am so excited to introduce you to a good acquaintance of mine, Scott Tolinski, who is the channel runner of LevelUpTuts here on YouTube. So if you haven't seen his channel yet, there's a ton of great content. He's actually been doing this a lot longer than I have. And so be sure to check that out after you see this video. So let's say hello to Scott. Scott, how are you, my man?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I am super fantastic. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your channel and kind of introduce you to the people that are currently watching my channel and may not already know about you. So as I said, you've been doing this longer than I have. It looks like you've been doing it about 2 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it started in March of 2012. Yeah, March of 2012. So just over 2 years. Yeah.
So how long have you been? How long have you been coding though?
For a very long time. Let's see. Like I probably started when I was in high school. So like in 2002, 2004 or something. I've always done coding like here and there. It wasn't like a total professional aspiration of mine until after college, and I had like all these different career paths, and then I was like, coding is the one I found to be like the most exciting and interesting, so I just went all in there.
So you said after college you decided to do coding. You didn't go to college for coding?
No, I actually went to the University of Michigan for music, and specifically music and video production. So like my whole goal was to do like a whole multimedia degree. And it's like a really small program, right? Like the other two people in my program are currently doing like ridiculous things. Like one person plays guitar for 30 seconds to Mars, and the other girl got second place on The Voice. So like everybody is doing like music stuff, and I'm like a web developer.
And that was in Michigan?
Yeah, it's at the University of Michigan, yeah.
Nice, okay. So that kind of dovetails into the second question I was going to ask, like where did the YouTube come from? But it looks like you have a history of multimedia and video production.
Yeah, it was really just like I knew I could do it, right? I had the abilities. That I was actually at one point going to do like editing and motion graphics as a career. So like editing and all that stuff was, already second nature to me. So it was just like, hey man, I have the tools to do it. I know how to do it. I might as well, like, there's nothing stopping me from starting this channel,
So yeah, but why YouTube as a platform instead of like Vimeo, which is a little bit more artsy, or like, I don't know, something else? Or
yeah,
a self-hosted solution.
Specifically because I think I saw a lot of channels on YouTube that were like doing tutorials or whatever, and it was just sort of, maybe that was the inspiration. Maybe not necessarily like channels, but like I would see if I'd search for something, YouTube was always the first thing to come up. So I know YouTube is like really well integrated with a lot of things, and they have a nice API, or they have a better one now. But it just like, I think the YouTube community was more of the support that I was like looking for, rather than like Vimeo or something like that.
You mentioned the YouTube API. Have you used it for anything? Just pulling in things to your own site, right?
Yeah. The LevelUpTuts site is like all automated, so whenever I post anything, it automatically is grabbing all the latest content, cataloging into my site, my database, whatever.
Mm-hmm. So for 2 years then, or a little bit more than that, how have you seen the coding scene on YouTube change?
I think specifically, I think there's a lot more channels like your channel. I'm trying to think of some other names, but I feel like there's a lot more channels popping up, and people are less afraid to make these short video tutorials, because at one point it was only like a select few people that were making this kind of stuff, and now you can really get like tutorials on almost like anything, right? Like I feel like searching for anything, almost like if I want to learn something, I go to YouTube and I search for it. If I want like a blanket overview of a topic, right? Maybe not like the specifics, but like if I want an introduction to a topic, I'll go to YouTube and search, and almost like undoubtedly there's going to be like a 6-minute, 10-minute primer onto it.
Yeah, I learned how to change all the electrical inputs in my house on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it random? I'm like, oh, I'm sure it's on YouTube.
I'm a new homeowner. Like I've owned my house for like 2 years now, and like anything breaks, go to YouTube. Like I have no idea. I'm like totally fresh to all this stuff.
People used to call their parents. Now they just go to YouTube.
Yeah, seriously.
Cool. So who are the early channels that you mentioned? You said there was just a few. I'm kind of new to the YouTube coding scene, so I only know like the handful that I know. What were you referring to earlier?
I think one of the first channels I saw was the new Boston, and he does like a lot of like Java tutorials, and in particular, I know it wasn't the normal guy who does the channel, but another guy. He did like an Android series, and for a while I was super into Android native development, and I like watched like 200 of those videos. And at that point I was like, man, I could like totally do this. Like this isn't, there's so many topics underrepresented. I could, fill that void. Right.
So for people who haven't seen any of your videos, like what is your kind of niche? Like where are you most comfortable in, and after you're comfortable there, where do you stretch out?
Yeah, so it's funny. I mean, the channel's like almost been based around like what I'm doing at work, right? So at one point I was doing like really heavy Drupal, Magento, CMS based sites. So I have a ton of like 70 plus, maybe like 80 plus Drupal videos, along with like a huge series on Magento. And I don't use those technologies a lot anymore, but it's still like a core part of my audience. So I have a CMS like component of my my content, right? But I also I want to be represented in the things that I'm using a lot. So I have like a Gulp series. I have a Sketch 3. It's like I don't know if you're familiar, right?
Yeah, it's an illustration app that a lot of designers use for layout.
Yeah, right. So basically the stuff that I'm using every day now is more like Angular and Gulp and maybe some Node stuff and whatever, and that's what I'm into. So that's maybe where I'm pushing some of my content, and I'm pushing others in a direction that's like still satisfying that CMS stuff. And I'm actually sort of working on a schedule where I can have it more like regular. So I'm having like, this day is going to be CMS topic day, and this day is going to be like styles specific day, whether it's Sass or CSS or whatever. And then this day is going to be like a JavaScript day, whether it's Angular or, Backbone or some other technology.
Yeah. So is that like 3 videos a week? Do you do every week?
I have a goal, and it's to do at least 4 videos a week. So like 2 on Tuesday and 2 on Thursday.
Dude, that's so much work.
Yeah, it's been wild, man. So my goal this year has been to do that, and I've actually like exceeded that all the time. I usually get like 3 videos done each of those days, so like 3 videos on Tuesday and 3 on Thursday. But I have to be like really well prepared, or else like that doesn't work. Right. Since I'm like the only person behind this, it's like really. I have to like plan it all. I have to get it ready. I have to do it. I have to edit it, whatever. And like that has to happen, or else nothing's coming out.
Yeah, I mean that's like when I was like learning about your channel, I noticed you're coming up on nearly 600 videos.
Yeah.
You have 540 videos right now.
Yeah.
And if you've been only there for 2 years, that's quite a lot of work. Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not even close to that. I'm like, oh, I'm nearly 100. No, you're like at 600.
So I breakdance, right? You saw my website that I've been dancing for a while. I got a bad concussion, like a concussion that put me out for like 6+ months. Like at that time, it was February of 2012, and I'm like a really active person. I'm like always doing something. I practice like a bunch. I'm always like moving around, and it's like that happened, and I had to like sit on my couch for like 6 months straight and do nothing. So that period, I was like, I'm just gonna make tutorial videos. Like I'm gonna do it after work. I'm gonna do it on the weekends. I'm just gonna go for it.
So that's when it started, when you were laid out sick from a concussion.
Yeah. It was just something to keep me doing something, you know what I'm saying? Like I just got really bored really quickly.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to save this kind of questioning for the end, but I know that you're a break dancer.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it when you talked about your concussion, but like I was like so excited when I found your videos. I'm a huge fan of breakdancing. Like I watch all like the not the stupid movies, but all the movies that like people kind of like really like step up 2, step into the streets. I'm all about like the you got served and all. I love all that stuff. I watch them all the time. So tell me about your adventure in breakdancing. When did that start? What did you do with it? How far did it go? And do you still do it?
Yeah, I practice like on a good week I practice like 2 hours for 2 days a week, so like 4 hours a week maybe, Monday and Wednesday nights. So I do breaking Monday and Wednesday, and then tutorials Tuesday and Thursday after work. That's like my thing. And I started 10 years ago. I've entered like competitions like all over the US. And I got to do like Lions, like a Detroit Lions halftime show. I did Pistons halftime shows. Like my crew was like, we used to just drive to competitions that are like these little underground like one-off competitions. We'd enter, and we'd come right back. Like I remember driving like 8 hours to Tennessee. We like entered, made it to the semifinals, and then immediately got in a car and came back. Like 8-hour trip both ways, and that's just what we did for years and years. And then I got the concussion, and since then I've been like mostly like judging competitions rather than like entering a lot, because I had to like slow down. I had to promise my wife, because I got my concussion right before we were getting married. So it was like the weekend of our engagement photos. I got a concussion, and I had this huge bruise on my face. We had to like delay them and stuff like that. So she made me promise that I was like gonna be hilarious. Careful. Yeah, she's like, you are like going to totally mess yourself. So ever since then, I've pulled back like a lot, because I used to be real crazy and like do a lot of stuff on my head, and I still do a little bit, but not as much.
Oh, that's so funny. I really want to see your wedding photos now.
Yeah, we had actually my my entire crew, which is like all over the world right now, like doing different things, just ridiculous.
Is that bittersweet for you?
What's that?
Is that bittersweet for you?
Yeah, but when we're all in the same room, it's pretty cool. And that was like one of the times at my wedding. It was like all of us, but maybe like 2 of us. One guy was in Thailand and one was in like Korea, and but the rest of us, we all got together at my wedding, and we did like a big performance for the family and everybody. And like my family hasn't seen me dance a whole lot, so they were all like super excited for it. So it was a good time.
That sounds awesome. And where did you meet them? You said you've been doing that 10 years?
Yeah, I met them. A lot of the guys I met at U of M when I was a freshman. I started when I was a freshman in college in 2004. And the guys are like all sorts of, like one guy's an engineer, and and then we have guys that went to MSU, Michigan State, just like right maybe like an hour away, and just dudes from around the area. So some of the guys are from U of M, and then just pretty much everybody's from around Michigan, wherever. And there's the breakdancing scene, the b-boy scene in Michigan is actually like, it's pretty decent, and it's a lot better than it used to be. There's probably a good like 60, 70 dancers in Michigan right now. Really? Yeah, it's pretty good.
So you recognize other crews when you're at the competitions?
Yeah, I mean, in Michigan we know everybody, right? Detroit has a big scene. Grand Rapids has a big scene in Ann Arbor, which is like where I'm at, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Those are all like the big sort of areas for the breaking scenes in Michigan. And
awesome.
In Michigan, it's sort of tight competition between everybody, but like all we want to do is like beat Chicago and beat Ohio, and and like the opportunities for that, like Chicago's really good, and they're on an international level and stuff like that. So it's just funny. It's just like a weird scene where like everybody. Like I know people in groups from like all over the U.S. But
yeah. Has that influence of understanding rhythm and movement and energy like that, has that helped or influenced the way that you create in code or design at all? I've tried to let it help that way. Like specifically, there were times when I was like trying to keep it really separate. Like I was trying to keep my web stuff like really
sort of professional in my breaking stuff, you know, whatever, like just all pure creative, whatever. And then I was like, well, this is me. It's such a large part of me. And that's why like the latest iteration of my site like features me dancing like really large on it, because I wanted to sort of get better at combining those two things, right? And even with web, I'm almost a little bit like I'm able to be a little bit more creative and just try to like break out of that and try to do, because in breaking you have these foundational aspects, right? You have these foundational moves that you have to do right or with your own style or whatever, but then the whole goal is to give people something they've never seen. So you have judges who have seen it all, right, from everywhere, but you want to show them something that they've never seen that's musical and has those foundational elements but is still surprising and new. And so like I guess in that aspect of it, like I want to bring that with web development, because from breaking I know that like delights people, right? When they see something that works well and is good but is like something they like haven't seen, right?
Yeah, that's right on point, man. So when I was looking at your website, I was like, what? This fool dancing right now? Like, cause I was like looking for like, you know, a guy who's like, oh, look at my code and look at my videos and stuff. But it's like the first thing you show in your face, like you're doing like a head spin or something. It was really cool. And I was first of all so excited. Second of all, I was like, is this the guy? And I'm just so glad to hear that like the way that you're combining those things is, you know, just kind of putting yourself out there where you can, and not being like too concerned about like, well, is this going to get me a job? Is this what a recruiter wants to see or something like that? Like, I really admire that approach. So talk to me about the role of design in your coding work and in your creative process altogether. Yeah,
so like I'm trying to think, like in 2000 and like I don't even remember, when I was first starting to get like really try to get a job as like a developer, because I've had like a lot of weird jobs, like once I have like a music degree, I was like an accountant, and then I was like a media technician and a bunch of stuff. Like I was trying to get a web development job, but I like wasn't there yet, right? And my website actually said like web designer, like that's what I was like going for. I wanted like a web design job, but like not realizing that I was like way better at coding the whole time. So like once I figured out like that was like my strength, right, was coding, I just like went there, right? But like design had always been something that I wanted to do a lot. So once I decided that I was going to be a developer and not necessarily a designer first, it actually like took all like the pressure off of wanting to be an awesome designer or something, and I just practiced for fun. And I didn't practice to get better at design. I practiced because I like designing things. And a lot of my design work was like terrible for a really long time. And of course, I mean, with anything you practice and it still like has a long ways to go, right? But I think that LevelUpTuts, the current iteration of the design, was like one of the first designs I was really like super proud of, because it didn't look like a lot of my stuff before that. It even looked like a developer designed it. And even the LevelUpTuts sites before then, the iterations of the design before then were like not ideal at all. And I always had like this vision in my brain of what it could look like, and I just like didn't have the skill to like pull it off. So
my first impression of LevelUpTuts channel, like just the channel, a header and the logo and then the companion site, my first impression that you were like a part of a bigger company.
Oh yeah,
because it was just it's just so like professional, like it's really slick.
Awesome, thank you very much. A lot of that is due to like there's a really super talented designer named Mike McMillan, who we can shout out here. He's actually based out of Chicago now. He used to work at a company I worked at, but he's the one who designed our logo, and he put together sort of like, here's the logo and here's, you know, the sort of general like color schemes that you're going to be using. And without that component of it, like I would have been screwed. Like the initial LevelUpTuts logos we had were terrible, and then he came along and made like a great like sort of, I don't know, I just like I don't do a lot of like purple and teal anything, but the purple and teal, for some reason I just like really latched onto it. And
it's bold. You know, the safe is blue. It's different, right? You use blue and you're gonna be safe.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, no, I really appreciate that, because like I said, I put a lot into it. I had a lot of iterations, and I worked really hard to make that look pretty good. So I'm pretty psyched that that it comes off that way.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's a success. So you collaborated with Mike McMillan.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the role of collaboration in your work?
Yeah, I wish there was more collaboration in my work. There was really not a whole lot. When I started LevelUpTuts, I started it with a guy named Ben Schaff, who he has maybe like 30 maybe 40 videos that he had done in 2012 when we first started. And at the time, he was actually my boss at an agency that I worked at. And then we both ended up getting jobs as developers for the University of Michigan. Actually, like he got a job at the University of Michigan. He left the agency we were working at, and then he brought me to U of M as a developer there. But the job just like wasn't as exciting. We were working on like old technologies. We had to support really old browsers, old servers, and it just like wasn't where I wanted to be, right? And we currently now work together at Team Detroit. So him and I have been like moving around. He doesn't have room for LevelUpTuts anymore in his like schedule. He's got 2 kids with another one on the way. And like if he ever wanted to be a part of Level Up or jump back in, it would be like, yeah, you're in, you know, in an instant. So him and I collaborated a lot on the early sort of like when we came up with like the game plan, like we're gonna do like 6 to 8 minute, 10-minute tutorials or whatever. We're gonna do them on these like kind of topics. But since then, it hasn't been a ton of like collaboration on a lot of stuff, you know.
I didn't know it was not only you at the beginning. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, we started together and with all intention of like going at it, but like I towards the end he was like recording late night, like having to whisper into the microphone to like not wake up his newborn, and I was just like, you know, he couldn't do it.
That's my life right there.
Yeah. I don't have any kids yet, so it's I have an opening right now in my life. I just have
they definitely take a lot of time.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah.
Cool. So you mentioned earlier that you thought about being a designer professionally.
Yeah.
And then you messed around with it, and then you decided. You said you would go for coding, and then it would relieve the stress of trying to be a designer.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, why is being designer stressful?
I think it's like mostly because I wasn't like a great designer. I didn't have it like then. I know people don't have it naturally, but I didn't have that skill level that I wanted to have. So I would design things that I think would look pretty good, and I'd look back on them a couple months later and be like really embarrassed with them or whatever. I'm sure like even my code now I'm like that, but I didn't have the necessarily the training either. I took maybe like 10 art credits in college or something, and not a whole lot before that. So I had the I was more like I'm proficient in Illustrator and Photoshop, but like correct balance and spacing and color and things like that were not things I was ever trained in. So it was sort of just like I wanted to be a designer without having the practice or the skills or whatever to be there where I wanted to be. So that was, I guess that's what was stressful about it for me, was that like there was a lot of focus on like getting better and not like having fun and just designing things like creatively. I don't know. Sometimes that like that aspect of it, like thinking a lot about something, like gets in the way of the creativity aspect that you really sort of need to just sketch out something and just try things and fail and whatever, you know.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast just yesterday, and it was an illustrator talking to the host who's a comedian, so like really different fields, but he was saying that he would often, even though he was right-handed, he would draw with his left, because that would cause it would like really shake up your brain and cause your right brain to try to take over, because your left brain wants to like say like, okay, this is a label, this is how it works, but your right brain doesn't see labels, it sees like shapes and motion, and like it understands depth and motion and stuff like that. So I think that's really interesting that like you were able to, or you're struggling with like the I feel like I don't get, not that you don't get it, but you're struggling with, I feel like I'm not like achieving what I want to do with this part of my brain, but the other brain was like no stress. It was just like, this is fun.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I've always been like more technically proficient, even though like I feel like I'm a pretty creative person because I like don't mind just like trying things, but like, and my ability in Photoshop was better than my ability to create anything worthwhile in Photoshop. That was like the problem.
Yeah, I have this kind of like thing, like how you get like little, I don't know, not a pet peeve, but like a mission,
Yeah.
Some people don't believe that they're creative. Like, for example, in this conversation, you're referring to being creative as kind of producing a piece of art, right? Like an artifact from Photoshop, for example, in design. But I think that like coding is extremely creative.
Yeah.
You have to like definitely like figure out how things work and what's the best solution and like how to make it more efficient than it used to be. I think that like, if you're like an HR manager and you're trying to like figure out how to help people be acclimatized into the company and onboarding and hiring, if you're like, like my wife is primarily a caregiver, and that's like so much creative, like
right.
even more creative than I am. I
right.
think that there's like so many opportunities for creativity when you define creativity as what you were talking about with your dancing, being able to take influences from different places and combine it to make like a new thing that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, and I got that from that same exact idea. Like, hold on, I think I have this book like right here. This is like, I got this book, whatever. It's a technique for producing ideas, and I think I just bought it because it was like high up on Amazon at some point, and it's like 40 pages long, and pretty much the book is like, to come up with ideas or to be creative, you just take two existing ideas and find some way to marry them. Like, and so that's like always stuck with me since I read that, and it was like, oh, well then, yeah, I guess everything is a combination of like just two separate ideas, right? I mean, yeah. or multiple separate.
That concept really resonates with me.
Yeah, I know.
I do what?
Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah, it was the same here as
Yeah, I do a YouTube channel about coding, and that's kind of like right here in my like excitement levels, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm a designer professionally, so that's right here.
Oh, okay.
And then probably even above that is this idea of creativity and creative health and like working and workflow and work ethic. Like, yeah. That part like really gets me excited.
Yeah.
So like hearing you talk about this book, and like I'm gonna read it now. I've never heard of that, but I'm gonna go read it. That sounds awesome.
I'll make sure you get a link to it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll put a link to it in the description.
Yeah.
For everybody. Cool. So tell me about for people who are just entering into the industry and they're running up against that same question that you did, like, do I want to be a teacher or a musician? Do I want to be a dancer professionally or what have you? How do you like zero in on what you think you should do for the rest of your life, or what you should do for the next period of your life?
Yeah, for me it was like, I wanted to do a lot of things. Like on my website, I said I was like a sound designer. I was a videographer. I was like a motion graphics artist, a web developer, a web designer, and like I wanted to do all of these things, right? They were just interests of mine, and at some point you just got to be like, what am I good at, and can I, what I want to do for a long period of time, like what gets me excited. And it's really just that creative problem solving. So in all of those things, like with motion graphics, you're using After Effects to try to create some sort of animation, but you're also trying to find like a really sleek way to do it, right? Like if there's like a really hard way to do things, and then there's sometimes you can find these like really awesome solutions in After Effects that make your life way easier, that cut down like an animation from like 10 hours to like 1 hour or less than that to pull off. And I realized that creative problem solving was like what I wanted to do, right? And coding you know, in particular gave me the most opportunities to like have problems, fix them, and find like new ways to do this sort of thing, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. So before we end it, I want to ask you what advice would you give to new developers who've decided on what they want to do, but they're just trying to crack into the industry? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, make a lot of stuff and try a lot of things, right? So I know everybody says just make stuff, right? But like,
that's it.
So right now, my current thing is I'm super into Angular, right? I'm super into it. But the first thing I tried was Ember, and I tried Ember, and I actually kind of liked it. And then I tried Angular, and I liked it more. And then I tried Backbone, and I was like, well, screw Angular, I'm doing Backbone. Like, that's going to be my thing. And then, so my current website is in Backbone, but almost immediately after doing that, I was like, you know what? Like, Backbone's pretty sweet, but I think I don't like it that much. Like, I think I like Angular more. So I'm the type of person who tried Django and Rails before they settled on Node. I tried, you know, Ember and Backbone before I settled on I just try things and let things speak to you, right? Work, and then if something feels right, then it feels right, and don't be afraid to just go for it.
That is awesome. What a great way. What a great way to end this little talk, man. That is brilliant.
Glad to hear.
So once again, thanks, man. Thank you so much for this conversation. I feel like really inspired right now. Like, I feel like I want to go out and like make some awesome stuff. I hope that everybody who's watching this feels the same way I do. And to get more of Scott and his awesome insights, check out his channel, LevelUpTuts, here on YouTube. And there's multiple videos per week, so I'm only doing one video a week. So get the rest of your fix over at Scott's channel, LevelUpTuts. Thanks for coming, Scott. I really appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Thanks for taking the time to chat.
All right, everybody, keep on hacking. We'll see ya.